call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bone. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now, today we will take a look at our second figure from the newest digital wave from McFarlane. Now, this is actually under the banner of DC Direct, but as we all do know, it's basically a DC Multiverse figure. Now, we already did take a look at Rebirth Batman in his blue costume with the alternate unmasked head. Very surprising figure that I enjoyed a little bit more than I thought I would, so I was highly motivated to get into this next figure. Now, luckily, there is no alternate head with this Hal Jordan because, of course, as you know, I would have had to buy a whole nother one so that I could display both heads. Now, this is the main reason why I actually prefer when McFarlane used to just sell an alternate head and have a whole complete another body with it. But I know I was in the minority because everybody always ranted and raved about how he could just include the alternate head and save everybody a lot of grief. But actually, this is worse for me because now I must buy another figure so that I could have a body to display the alternate head, because that is just one of my collecting habits that I like to do. Now, I don't blame anyone for this. It's fine. Actually, I'm having a lot of fun doing it, so no big deal. Now, I've heard a lot of rumblings on the interwebs about this Hal Jordan Green Lantern, how this is what they always wanted, and they hated the original release. I have my own opinions that we'll actually get into. Now, he does look pretty valiant in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now, the big difference is that this one does have that pretty cool McFarlane digital logo stamped on it. So this is actually going to be kept separate from my other stands. He also comes with his data file card. Pretty interesting image that they used for this card. I would have went more with a classic, traditional, old school artwork from the Silver Age, which this is actually touted as. But they went more for like just a new age, stylized version of Hal Jordan. One thing I do know that I've learned over these last couple of years collecting McFarlane, there is no rhyme or reason sometimes. If you want to try and dig down and curl up in McFarlane's brain and try and figure out why sometimes they make the decisions they do, I would actually highly advise against doing this because it will drive you a little bit cuckoo. There's there's absolutely sometimes no understanding why they make the decisions that they make with the artwork, with the character designs, with the accessories. It's just all over the place. And while in the end, I do love this 7-inch DC Multiverse line, sometimes it can get a little bit upsetting. Now, on the back, you do have some information, and we'll go ahead and hold on to this. Now, you also get a digital code on a different card with these figures, but something I am definitely not interested in. Now, surprisingly, he gets a nice array of accessories. You do get 2 alternate hands. You get an alternate left gripping hand and also an alternate left splayed hand, which is one of my favorite hands that McFarlane gives out. Really opens up your ability and your choices when you're posing them or doing figure photography. So these are always appreciated. We'll hold on to those. Now you also get a lantern with this figure. Now, we have seen this one before and in different tints of green. Now, my biggest concern isn't so much the tint of green. This is sort of like a lime jello plastic. My my big thought about this is that the lantern batteries are not supposed to be constructs. They're actually supposed to be physical metal units that they use to recharge their rings. Now, I actually painted one of the other ones that I received and did it in a more metallic green just so that it would look a little bit more traditional with my figures. But I mean, there's no negative actually in having one in this paint color and then one in the clear plastic. Pretty much just allows you to have different ones you could use for different situations. But I do wish that McFarlane would understand that the lantern batteries are not actually energized constructs, they are actual physical apparatuses. Now, you also do get these two energy construct balls. We have seen these as well, specifically with the Batman as Green Lantern in the collector's edition. But as I said, they were a different color, more of a snot color, while these are, like I said, more of a lime jello, which I actually prefer this shade of transparent plastic. So we will hold on to those as well. Now let's go ahead and dive deep into this Hal Jordan from the Silver Age of the comics. Now, one thing I want to bring up right away is just looking at him with first impressions, really classic, standard looking Hal Jordan. You got that little smirk because he, of course, has that sort of devil may cry attitude. He's a little bit quirky. Love the hair sculpt, love the suit design. A lot of people were complaining that there wasn't enough green on the upper shoulders, but if you know anything, you know that that is a later version of Hal Jordan, while this being more of a sort of 60s Silver Age version of the Green Lantern. So right away, what I see is this is what a lot of, classic collectors actually want. Now, pay no attention that this is just a reused body buck from the Blue Beetle Booster Gold buck, but it actually works perfectly with this character. The boot cut actually works. The trunks were actually made very snug and form fitting so that they don't ride up too high and have a sleeker look to them, making a classic superhero silhouette form. All in all, I'm really, really happy with this figure. And before we go into comparisons, I do want to bring up one more thing. Now, he has the classic articulation, like in the head. He could look down, he could look up, you got right to left. You got some tilt for attitude, which of course he does have. Smooth articulation at the waist, beautiful. McFarlane really coming into their own with the articulation. You got a slight forward crunch. This is one figure where the abdominals actually come out perfectly. He has that nice six pack when you get the abdomen, posed in a certain way, but you can still twist them and get them in some cool flight poses. Leg articulation is awesome as well for posing them. Like I said before, the boots work perfectly. All the articulation is just awesome. You got that classic Green Lantern ring, your classic Hal Jordan head sculpt. Now, what I wanted to bring up was let's go ahead and bring out the original release of Hal Jordan, which here's where we get into, people's different opinions. And while some people I've heard say, oh, I hated that figure, it sucks. I'm really happy now we have this classic Hal Jordan, so I could throw away that old first release of Hal Jordan. But I actually live on a different planet that I like to call Earth. And I actually really adore this original Hal Jordan figure. Now I have modified mine. I painted the black underneath of the costume that actually gives him a more traditional look. I actually shortened the arms because they were a little bit long for my taste, which actually proportions him out a lot better. I added a black wash to most of the parts of the figure to give him a little bit of depth. And that head sculpt has grown on me since the first time I laid eyes on it. I also gave the hair and around the face a little bit of washes just to bring out the details and give him a little bit more life. So, in the end, this is actually one of my favorite earlier releases from McFarlane. Now, I know a lot of people will not agree with me and pretty much complain about it and say that this figure is horrible, but not in my book because I have a different perspective. And that is that if you want to build a modern Justice League or a modern superhero team, you can actually use this Hal Jordan, put him up with some of the more modern takes of the characters to build a new age lineup where the costumes have more detail and, of course, they have a newer feel to them. But at the same time, I do appreciate this more classic Silver Age version of Hal Jordan. And if you want to use this to build a more Silver Age team of the Justice League, you can definitely use this Hal Jordan. Now, height wise, he's not extremely tall and he's not super short. He's pretty much average, and that works really well. So, very appreciative and very happy to own both of these Hal Jordans. And who knows if in the future we'll see a Hal Jordan based more off of the newer costumes from McFarlane, like the Kyle Rayner body and the Atrocitus, which also includes the new Kilowog figure, which these suits have a certain consistency to them where they have like a lot of micro bead and textures on them. And I just definitely hope that eventually we get a Hal Jordan in that costume. Now, we have also received the Parallax figure, which is a completely different version of Hal Jordan. And I appreciate having that version as well because all of these figures can actually be used on their own. If you love Green Lantern, you love the classic Hal Jordan, you can pretty much put this guy on a flight stand and he will be an awesome piece on your desk or in your workspace. Very cool figure. And that actually brings me into another point. A while back, someone told me, "Oh, you customize all the McFarlane figures because they all suck and they're never perfect." And while I do agree that a lot of the figures always have, that one little detail that kind of gets on your nerves and keeps them from being 10 out of 10 figures, there have been some figures that I had no need to customize. They were actually pretty perfect the way they came out of the packaging. One right off the top of my dome that I could think about is Captain Carrot. I've had no, ideas to customize that figure or paint it. Although I could use a darker wash, I just don't really feel like I need to do it. And that brings me into this Hal Jordan. Perfect out of the packaging. You do not need to do anything to him to make him any better. He is, I would have to say, a 8 out of 10 figure straight out of the box. Now he has these awesome accessories that you can actually use. You can swap out the hands, put him in some cool poses. You can use the lanterns. You can use the energy constructs. You can even bring out some old school constructs from DC Universe Classics, and they actually work well with these DC Multiverse figures. And that brings me into another figure I wanted to bring out. And this is where I could actually prove to you that this costume is accurate to the age that it comes from, because This Hal Jordan from DC Universe Classics represented that same era. And as you can see, there is no green on the shoulders. He also has this sort of sleek stripe down symbol in the middle of the chest, the white gloves, the boots. Basically, this DC Multiverse Hal Jordan is the representation of this DC Universe Classics Hal Jordan, but of course, with major upgrades in articulation and plastic. You will never get this DCUC figure in any of the poses that you can get this DC Multiverse from McFarlane figure. It's just no comparison. Posability wise, photogenic wise, this new Hal Jordan figure is actually going to knock a lot of different figures out of the air. As I said before, only in articulation and design, Hal Jordan figures that, of course, actually look a lot better and use a more metallic gold paint, but their articulation is pretty archaic and they will never match up to the posability of this DC Multiverse Hal Jordan. That's another thing I do know. It is actually DC Direct, the digital waves, but let's not kid ourselves. All of these figures fit perfectly in line with your DC Multiverse collection. So, those are my thoughts. For me, this is a must have Hal Jordan figure if you want to start building a classic superhero setup. And for me, I am overly joyed and excited to add him to the collection. But you guys, keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.